If you're getting ready to do your holiday shopping at Sephora, Nike, or Neiman Marcus, make sure you head to Rakuten first. Rakuten helps you save big on whatever you're buying for the holidays. Getting gifts for friends and family? Get some cash back for yourself. Plus, save on festive home decor, party outfits, and that trip to see your fam. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on top of the biggest sales of the season, so you get the most savings. And it's easy to use. Just start your shopping at Rakuten.com or use the Rakuten app, and you'll get your cash back payments through PayPal or check. Rakuten partners with over 3,700 stores. The stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back. Join for free at Rakuten.com and get the Rakuten app. That's Rakuten.
Your plans? Today it's dinner with the parents at your spot.
We gotta come back here.
Now, their spot. Or you're on the edge of your seat at the game.
Come on, just one time.
And it's the one. Or maybe you're catching the next flight to...
Now boarding flight 1850.
Oh, that's you. The choice is yours. And when you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it. You're finally at that hot new spot. The one your friends keep raving about. Sitting across from your date. It's going...
Another round?
Really well. And that dish you've been dying to try? Oh, it's headed your way. You can smell it, hear it sizzling fresh off that skillet as it comes closer, closer, and served. Go ahead, enjoy. After your phone sneaks a bite first. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
There's never been a better time to find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks. Download the BetMGM app and place a $10 moneyline wager on any NBA playoff game. If either team hits a three-pointer in the game, you'll win $200 in free bets, regardless of your wager's outcome. Just use code LIBERTY200 when you make your first bet. Sign up now and discover BetMGM's daily promotions, boosted odds specials, and more. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use code LIBERTY200 to win $200 if either team hits a three in any NBA playoff game. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Pennsylvania only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, help is available. Call 1-800-GAMBLER in partnership with Hollywood Casino Morgantown.
Hey, it's Christine from Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian and actress Mollie Heckerling talks about how her babysitter argued with Gilbert Gottfried.
We're talking about Gilbert Gottfried because, you can't cancel Gilbert because the beauty of Gilbert is that it's not even about the thing that he's making fun of. It's that you don't want him to make fun of it, so he has to. Like the way that he got fired from Aflac for making all those jokes after the tsunami in Japan. You know what I mean? It's a compulsive thing that he has to do. It's his superpower that he just has to do this.
Today on the show, comedian and actress Mollie Heckerling talks about how her babysitter argued with Gilbert Gottfried and got them on the Howard Stern show. Stay close.
Hey, my name is Mollie Heckerling, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show or a new listener, welcome to the show. Now, I hope you guys had a chance last week to listen to comedian Greg Baldwin. Now, Greg Baldwin, Mollie, this is a comedian who has been quite successful, but he took a little turn down the meth path. He took a little
meth detour.
A little meth detour, yeah, and the addiction, and it's just unbelievable what can happen to people. I mean, I'm sure you understand in terms of, yeah, drugs are bad. We know that, Christine. But I mean, like Greg points out, he was grew up in a great family. He had a great job at CBS. He wore a suit to work every day. And then he got caught up, so it's like, yeah, it's an incredible story about comedy and meth and drugs and all of it. It's really great. So go back, you guys, listen to Greg Baldwin. It's a really interesting story, but not today. Not today. I'm super happy to be here with another fine talent. She's an actress and a writer, and her name is Mollie Heckerling, and she brings forth the topic, My Babysitter versus Gilbert Gottfried? Is that what we decided on?
Yeah.
My Babysitter versus Gilbert Gottfried, which it just cracks me up. And I know, I know Gilbert, I met him just once, but his voice is so unique and he's so bizarre. I can't even imagine having him in my house. Was he loud? Do you remember him being loud?
No, he doesn't talk like that at all. He ratchets it up for the act, but he sounds like a normal guy, which is funny because he still says all the incendiary things that he would say if he were on stage, just like if he was a normal person talking to you. So he's great to have in your house if you're cool with, having someone around who will literally say anything just to piss someone off or to, just be, contrarian.
Well, a lot of times I think comedians do like to poke the fire, as it were,
Exactly. Yeah.
I just think it's fascinating. I'm anxious to hear your story. I know that your mother is a famous writer and director, Amy Heckerling. And, when I look at her body of work, it just blows my mind. The director of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and she wrote Clueless. I mean, it's just a tremendous, history. Your mother has such a body of work. And I would imagine that means that she hung out with a lot of people, that were her contemporaries. And therefore those people would be in your life because you're her daughter. So yeah. It reminds me of like maybe Pauly Shore talking. I talked to Pauly Shore once and he talked about how Sam Kinison drove him to school.
That's funny. I can only imagine Sam Kinison with road rage. That must have been hilarious.
Yeah. And so it's just super interesting. And I'm really anxious to hear your story. But you also have an incredible amount of talent, Mollie, as well as being a stand-up comedian. You have this fabulous YouTube channel and you've created this, it's essentially a sitcom with puppets called RATSO. And so I guess it's like Fatso, but it's RATSO and the puppets are rats.
Yeah. We were going for, we were sort of going for the, honeymooners, Bowery Boys-ish kind of vibe, because that's what all the kids are clamoring for these days.
Wait, was this a pandemic project?
We did this. So no, it wasn't a pandemic project. We shot it the year before the pandemic. And between the time that we, wrote the thing, made all the additional puppets and, got the thing edited and released, that was right when the pandemic hit. And I felt really bad because I was like, oh, nobody wants to hear about, our dumb projects and stuff right now. It's not a good time to be self-promoting. And at the same time, it was like, we spent all year making this and we wanted to release it as soon as we could because it was politically topical. You know what? It was like making fun of Donald Trump and stuff. And we knew that he was we were hoping he was going to get voted out. And I was like, I really want to get this out, while it's still relevant. So we decided to just go ahead and release it anyway. And, some of our friends who watched it and loved it said it was a nice distraction. And, we still got into some festivals and won some awards. So that was nice. But no, it wasn't a pandemic project. We had it locked and ready to go. And then the pandemic hit and it was just like, shit.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. But that being said, it's always been like the puppet project. The script is incredibly funny. I mean, it's like joke after joke. It's so fast. It's seriously, and you look at the YouTube comments, it is borderline genius because it's
Thank
moving
you.
so quickly. I mean, it's, if you guys ever, you've heard puppets, whether it's Avenue Q or whatever, they can get away with anything. And so these puppets are rats, and it's just moving 1,000 miles an hour. And the very first episode, puppet starts talking, and the very first thing is something about there at the dinner table, and looks at the mother rat, and she just like vomits all over the place.
Yeah, she's a drunk.
And that sets the tone for the whole series. It's just so funny and raunchy.
Thank you. Yeah, we wanted to do something that sort of straddled both horses of being like modern and raunchy, and while also being sort of throwbacky and retro sitcom-y, because, I grew up watching Nick at Night and all those shows like Taxi and, I Love Lucy and stuff. So that was the vibe we kind of wanted to go for. So it was good because it actually helped me hook up with some writers that I really liked, who watched it and liked it and wanted to work with me on stuff. So I'm very grateful for the people who did watch it. I did get one nasty comment on YouTube from some guy who apparently, who didn't like it. I guess he was like pro border wall or something like that. So I'm not too sad that, it's like, okay, this wasn't for him, clearly.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So who made the puppets? I mean, I'm saying you created a world. There's a trailer, and there's like a little miniature kitchen, miniature dining room, miniature bedroom, and then there's tissues everywhere, and there's a toilet, and there's a sink. So who did all this?
Well, I built the puppets, and I had help with the sets. My friend Janine Gorzinski, she helped build a lot of the sets. Her father's a contractor, so she's very good with her hands. She's like a modern day Irene Lorenzo, who can just like sort of build anything. She can come into your home and renovate your kitchen and stuff like that. So she did a lot of the building for like, the miniature counters and the trailer and stuff. And then a bunch of the other things were just like me and my friends made out of foam core. It was just like a high school art project, basically.
I love arts and crafts.
Yeah, me too. And the dangerous thing about arts and crafts is that you wind up keeping everything because you're like, oh, I can use this for this, or I can use this for that. And it's like, okay, I'm going to become a hoarder. Clearly, like you have to find out where to draw the line. So, we only kept the necessary garbage that was going to be used for the set.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a picture of how you shot this because okay, so story-worthy listeners out there, if you guys go over to YouTube, you look up Mollie Heckerling, Mollie Heckerling, the show will come up, RATSO will come up. It's on the Mollie Heckerling channel, right?
Right. I have a whopping 148 subscribers.
Hey, you know what? That has nothing to do with it, man. A lot of people don't bother subscribing, but the point is they still watch. I mean, you've got thousands of downloads. So go over there, you watch, and you'll see what I'm talking about. These characters are very well thought out. And I'm just trying to picture how you did this because they're not miniatures and it's not like claymation or anything like that. But did you have like a big platform in your place and then you built this world? Like, how did you do this?
We had casters that were made out of aluminum that a friend of mine who was a machinist, Rick Nelson, he's in Pearl River. If anyone listening needs to have hardware machined for them. He made us these aluminum casters that were adjustable in height so that we could put the sets up on the casters and then, have the puppeteers crouch underneath them. And that way, when you're done with the set that you're using, you can pop the locks on the wheels and just wheel it away.
So smart. So smart. Well, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, how does this happen? So, and then the puppets, it looks like they're made out of pantyhose. What are they made out of?
They're made out of fleece, but also I had a lot of fun going to the garment district.
I bet.
And just wandering around like a kid with ADD, looking at all the fabrics, imagining how they would look on, puppet strippers and pigeons and,
And you used a lot of them because a lot of the backgrounds, you could see it's like a tapestry behind. Mm-hmm. So what is the actual puppet? It's supposed to be a rat, but it kind of looks like a potato. What is it? What is that?
Yeah, he's a rat, and there's pigeons, and the Donald Trump proxy, his name was Corny Dump. He was they're all made out of fleece, but yeah, he's got a potatoey look to him, as many politicians do.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, the puppet thing was weird because at first I had the idea for the show and I was like, well, should I animate it? Should I do it like clay animation? And I was like, oh, surely puppets will be easier because then I won't have to animate it frame by frame, not realizing that it takes like 100 hours to build a decent looking puppet, not to mention the learning curve for an idiot like me who never built puppets ever.
Well, but it's more than that. I mean, you have 2 children. You're busy.
Oh,
and so
I didn't have the kids then.
Oh, okay.
This project was actually 10 years in the making because we had different versions of it that we shot, different pilots that we did with, my friend's production company at the time, which it kind of didn't pan out because it wasn't the flavor we were looking for. So this was sort of like my last hurrah with the project, being like, okay, I've been working on this for 10 years. I'm going to do it my way. And then I'll just put it to bed forever. Or if somebody wants it, we'll just keep the party train going.
Sure. Well, it's fabulous. And I'm really excited to find it. So you guys look for Mollie Heckerling over there on YouTube. And so you also do a lot of stand up, but obviously the pandemic and all that. So did you get on the Zoom train at all or?
I did one Zoom show. And it was fun. I know a lot of comedians who rode the Zoom train hard, and that was good. They were comedians that I already knew were like hitting stand up really hard before the pandemic. So it didn't surprise me that like even a pandemic wouldn't slow them down. Like, my friend Gina Bloom and Jack Steloso, like a lot of those comedians, they just like continued to hit it hard. Eric Bronstein, Tom McCaffrey. But I was like, I wasn't sure where I stood with the stand-up even before the pandemic because I was like having my baby. I wasn't like hitting it as hard as everyone else. So I kind of took this time to focus more on my writing. So I wrote a book that I'm currently shopping around and trying to get published.
Oh my gosh. No, I didn't know that at all. Wait, your sister wrote a book.
She did. She wrote a biography and sort of an autobiography of her own life growing up with our dad, Harold Ramis. The big, surprise sister chapter where it's like, oh, by the way, you have a sister that, you never met and stuff.
It's a pretty big surprise.
Right. Yeah. I was surprised too.
Because you think you're Mollie Israel and you are, but
right.
Your real dad is Harold Ramis. I mean, that's just that if in the comedy world, that blows people's mind because he's brilliant, was brilliant.
Right. He was. And like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. He was brilliant and amazing and I loved him and I'm glad that I got to know him before he died. My name was Mollie Israel and I changed it to Heckerling a few years after he died because I had a little falling out with my dad, Neil Israel, because we wanted to name our baby Harper. And in the Jewish religion, you take the first initial from a relative who's passed and give it to so Neil was not cool with that. And it put us on the outs for a while. And I switched my name. And I like the name Mollie Israel better. I feel like Heckerling is it's a good name, but it's very like, it's not a great stand-up comedy name because all the MCs are like Mollie Heckerling. And I'm like, okay,
Heckling,
whatever. But we're all cool now and everything's good. So that's nice. Yeah. And, I'm glad to be a part of Violet's life. My book is not like hers though, because hers was very much like, this was my childhood growing up. And my thing is sort of like a postpartum Alice in Wonderland Kafka nightmare. And I can see why a lot of lit agents are like, wow, there's something here, but it's not really what I do. So maybe I'll recommend you to someone else. So if anyone's looking,
so is it sort of like a parenting thing, almost like a mommy, like everybody gets postpartum and this is my experience, or no?
It's more like the main character has, but that's a good idea. Violet and Harold wanted to write a book that was like existential parenting, where it was like, we're all going to die now, please just go to sleep. And I still think that she should write that book. But this is very much like, she's suffering from, some weird mental stuff as a result of the postpartum, and she's OCD. And then, she has dreamy states and winds up, her timeline like splits like light through a prism, and she ends up experiencing all the different ways that her life could have turned out. She's like, living life as all these different people and trying to get back to her baby and her life. And it's very weird and surreal and with lots of biting social commentary, and it's very obnoxious. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think it sounds exciting, and it sounds like your personality rolled up, into one, and it sounds very honest as well.
It is. I mean, it's also very weird. I wanted it to be like off the wall. So like the first chapter, she like goes to a premiere with her mom, and all the celebrities are on the red carpet, and the reporters are shouting out like, "Hey, so-and-so, you look like shit. Have you been depressed lately?" Like, it's just very,
harsh. That's reality, man. Yeah, I love harsh. I do. I love it. Well, listen, I'm very excited to hear your story, My Babysitter versus Gilbert Gottfried. So we're going to hear that in just a second. But before we do, I wanted to remind everybody that we are still playing Story Smash, the storytelling game show, every Friday night, live on YouTube and Facebook. And you got to watch. It's at 7 p.m. Pacific time. It's 1 hour long. Tonight, I got on Peter Melman, Blanca Patch, and Greg Proops. I mean, come on. Pure entertainment. We've been having such a blast, and we're going back to the Improv very soon. So catch it live on Facebook or YouTube before we go back to the comedy club. All right, you guys. She's here right now. Mollie Heckerling. What an amazing talent. You've heard her talking. She is a comedian and a writer, and she's performed all over, like we talked about, all over New York in different clubs like the Broadway Comedy Club. And were you at Gotham, by the way? Have you been to Gotham?
I haven't performed at Gotham, but I really like Gotham. And it's a good club. My friend Daniel Lehman performed there, and we saw Jim Gaffigan. So I love them. I performed at Greenwich Village Comedy Club and The Stand.
Oh, yeah. How's The Stand? That was good, huh?
The Stand is good. Yeah, I did the Laughing Buddha show with, what's his name? Jeff. Oh, shoot. Jeff something.
Not Ross.
Not Ross. No, not Jeff. And because my brain wants to go to Jeff Ross, and it's not him. I could look it up. But,
that's okay. But I think it's... You have gotten out. No, you have. Wait, have you been out since the pandemic ended, or I know we're still kind of in it, but those clubs are opening. So
they are opening, yeah. And I wanted, because I got my my second Fauci ouchie, so I'm gonna hit up the bookers at Broadway Comedy Club and see if they have any spots, because someone from there already reached out to me about one of their nights. So
good.
I definitely wanted to take him up on that.
You have to, definitely. And, but then at the same time, you have a baby and you have a 6-year-old. So it's hard to fit comedy in, because it's, you got priorities going on. So on your terms, get out there, but if you're pressured, don't do it. I didn't get on the stage for like 10 years when my daughter was born. I couldn't justify leaving her, even with her dad, just because, I nursed her for like 9 years. No, I didn't nurse. But I did nurse her for a while. Yeah. And so I couldn't. But, when you're ready, you get back out there, Mollie. But don't, take your time. Comedy's not going anywhere, obviously.
Right. I like you mentioned your friend before, who Jeff Baldwin.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Who he took his detour.
Baldwin.
Oh, Greg Baldwin. Greg. I'm sorry. I'm always learning about new Baldwins. But yeah, like I sort of subscribe to the Marc Maron thing, where it's like, I don't trust anybody unless they've lost control of their life for a few years. And I feel like a lot of really great comedians totally will take time off if they're not feeling inspired or if they're going through something, only to come back harder and stronger. So
absolutely, because the more life you live, the more honest you can be, and the more it's all pretty much bullshit. So you may as well just do your thing, And I have often taken a little hint from my friend Blanca Patch, who's a comedian. He says, if you're having fun, then it's always going to be worth it. Like if you're having fun, and if you're not, because if somehow you're bombing or whatever, if you could somehow turn it around in your head and still have fun, then the audience will still be on your side, because they are like they're getting a positive reaction. But if they feel fear from you, or they feel like you're scared, then they're screwed, because they don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, you're the one on the stage with the control. So control it to funny. Don't control it to bomb.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of like being on a boat with a captain and realizing that he has no idea where he's going, and being like, oh shit, now we're all here with you.
Yeah. And now what? Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like there was a time, the last time I bombed, I think I told the audience that they reminded me of my dad, because the more I wanted them to like me, the less they actually did. And they thought that was funny. So that kind of just like nudged it back on. Yeah, it's like, if you're having fun, then they're going to want to go with you.
When you're on stage, do you ever mention who your parents are, or that your mom is Amy Heckerling, or that your dad was Harold Ramis?
I've done it a couple times, and the times that it goes over well, it feels like okay. And the times that it doesn't go over, I just feel like a schmuck, because it's not the sort of thing that I like to lead with anyway.
Right.
So it's only justifiable to me if it's getting laughs, and that it still makes me uncomfortable. So
it would have to be like it would have to be like an audience of people who remember, that era, first of all. And yeah, because if you throw stuff out and they're like, we didn't even know who Harold Ramis is. Like, we didn't even saw Ghostbusters. Cause people now they're so young. I don't know how that happens, but you know what I mean? Like, some people don't even know the history, and then you would distract them.
Or even if they do, you kind of just sound like an asshole, being like, my parents are so-and-so. I did it at a show where Violet was performing. There's a show in California that's run by our friend Nicole Blaine at it's the West Side Theater in okay. And that's a great show where they do a virgin sacrifice. They have a person who's never done stand-up comedy before come and do stand-up amongst a night full of other comedians.
Real comics, yeah.
Violet was the one who was going to be the virgin sacrifice, and she was promoting her book. So Nicole booked us both. And I mentioned our parentage in the set because it made sense in context.
Sure.
Any other time, it kind of just feels tacky to me. So I try to just go with my own comedy. I still talk about my mom because my family is funny, and my mom's one of those boomers who's like obsessed with World War II. So she's always like watching Nazis on the treadmill because it makes her run faster. And she's just like, you know what I mean? Where it's like, there's material there anyway that doesn't have to be like, my parents directed blah.
Sure. Well, no, I get it. It's just, it is fascinating, but at the same time, it's like nothing can help you on a stage. Nothing can really help you. Like, you can say something and get a big applause. I remember when, Sailor Brinkley, Christy Brinkley's daughter, took over for her on Dancing with the Stars a couple of seasons ago, and Christy Brinkley sprained her ankle or whatever. And then here comes her daughter, who's like stunning, obviously. And she gets all these applause because she's here and it's Christy Brinkley's daughter. But then, can you dance?
Yeah.
So it got very, oh shit. It's too much.
Yeah, let me be the first to reassure everybody that talent is not inherited. Looks are. I look very much like Egon, but I'm nowhere near as smart or talented. So there's that. But I do have some funny stories from my upbringing with my mom and all her crazy friends. So I'm very grateful for the fact that I have had the life that I had.
Absolutely. And listen, guys, you can follow Mollie over on Twitter at Mollie Schmolly. That's how I met you, kind of through Twitter. It's awesome. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Mollie Heckerling.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is my story time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So my story is about my babysitter growing up. Her name was Barbara. She was crazy and she looked exactly like Howard Stern. She was the kind of woman who would go into a restaurant and pick a fight with anybody, and, just would say anything because she had to say what she thought. She couldn't just not say anything, even if it was blunt and hurt your feelings. So she was a fun person to grow up with, very immature, very funny. But she had this tragic background because her parents were Holocaust survivors. And she would tell people when she met them a lot that her parents were Holocaust survivors because it was a big part of who she was. But I also think on some level she was accustomed to the sympathy a little bit where, everyone would, feel so bad for her. And, it was like an immediate sort of bonding thing that, she had to sort of relate to people and feel like, she had their sympathy. But my mom was friends with Gilbert Gottfried. And she made the mistake of trying to turn to him for sympathy. And it was the worst call she ever made. What happened was Gilbert was in town and he wanted to hang out with my mom. And Gilbert, I love him to death. But he is the cheapest human being on the face of the earth. He is so cheap that when he got appendicitis, he waited for his appendix to burst because he was too cheap to call an ambulance. So he calls my mom up one night and he says, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm making dinner." He goes, "Oh yeah, what are we having?" She goes, "Do you want to come over?" So he wants to come over, but he doesn't want to pay for a cab. So she sends my babysitter to go to his hotel and pick him up. So I guess this is when it all started. I wasn't in the car with them, but I guess what happened was they're in the car. She starts making conversation. She tells him.
How old is the babysitter, by the way?
She was 45.
And her parents were still alive then? Or
her
had they
mother
passed?
was still alive. Her parents survived the Holocaust.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, her parents survived the Holocaust. Her mother was still alive, but her father died in a car accident with her little sister years later. So, I mean, just sort of like a, not a
Horrible.
Happy family background. So she's telling Gilbert her background and the Holocaust story. And I guess he starts up in the car, like making jokes and, being an idiot. So that by the time they get back to the house, she's already upset. And he just kept going all night long. Just like, he ate whatever my mom gave him. He licked the plate. He said, "I guess your parents didn't eat this good in Treblinka." Like, "Oh, I've been meaning to lose some weight. Can you tell me how your parents did it?" Like, all just sort of like, we're talking about Gilbert Gottfried because like, you can't cancel Gilbert because the beauty of Gilbert is that it's not even about the thing that he's making fun of. It's that you don't want him to make fun of it. So he has to. Like the way that he got fired from Aflac for making all those jokes after the tsunami in Japan. You know what I mean? Like it's a compulsive thing that he has to do. It's his superpower that he just like has to do this. So Barbara was, really upset. And she
wait, did you guys sit down to have dinner? Did everybody sit down?
We're like sitting at the kitchen counter. I mean, we've never been like a formal sit down dinner type of family. We're slobs, like my, like you can take the girl out of the Bronx, but you can't take the Bronx out of the girl. That's my mom. So, we're just all sitting around the kitchen. He's eating, we're watching him like making these awful jokes. Barbara threatened to quit. My mom gave her more money and she, didn't quit and we all apologized. She was upset that, my mom was like laughing at the jokes, but it's like, she had to explain. It's like, it's because it's Gilbert. It's not because, it's because he's insane. I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't think that that's a valid excuse and would still think it's reprehensible, but they're probably also not comedians. So
Exactly.
So what happened was Barbara was a really huge fan of Howard Stern. Like she looked just like him and she loved him and she listened to him every morning and she knew that Howard Stern was friends with Gilbert. So she calls into the show one morning telling them this story and they put her on the air. And then they got Gilbert. They woke him up or whatever time it is that they record the show, like 6 a.m. They call him early in the morning, wake him up. They're like, we have this woman on the phone saying that you made fun of the Holocaust and, she's all pissed off. And, she works for Amy Heckerling and they proceeded to argue on the air. And it was so funny because the whole time they were just ripping on each other and Barbara loved a good fight. Like this was the thing about her. Like you couldn't take her to a sizzler without like her getting into a screaming match with somebody for God knows what, using a toothpick, anything that just like rubbed her the wrong way. So this was like sparring for her. Like I think she really enjoyed being on Howard Stern with Gilbert, like telling him he had a small dick and Howard saying if you had to sleep with a Gilbert or a Nazi, and she says a Nazi, and Gilbert's like, oh yeah, because they could give you more bread. Like it was and they did this. I guess it was like such a ratings darling that they had them on for like 3 separate episodes of just them fighting about, him being a schlub and how she thinks Ron Zimmerman is sexier than he is. And like all just random shit. And all these episodes are on YouTube now and they're labeled,
oh my gosh,
they're labeled Gilbert versus the German woman or Gilbert versus the Heckerlings. And he even started making jokes about me on the air because I was like 9 years old at the time. And he's like, oh yeah, Mollie, she's hot. Do you get to give her sponge baths? Like, what's that like? So he calls the house one day. And I was like, what'd you say? Oh, wait, no, I should go back. So Barbara and I also used to crank call him a lot after this whole incident. We'd leave him nasty messages telling him that he'd like wipe his ass with toilet paper and then save it because he was too cheap to buy a new roll. Or just like, that was like my stupid 10-year-old insult. Like we just left him all these nasty messages. And when he called the house one day, I was like, what'd you say about me on the Stern show? And he goes, I said you had a big hairy cunt. And then he hung up on me. So yeah, all those episodes of them fighting are just on YouTube where it's like, she's telling him he's not funny. And, it's just him like being a creep and making jokes about the Holocaust and, Howard and Robin just laughing the whole time. So that was my Gilbert Gottfried story. And also just my sort of way of keeping Barbara's memory alive because she tragically killed herself when I was about 16 years old. She OD'd on Ativan, which is not uncommon. I mean, it's an epidemic. Lots of people overdose on opioids. And I remember, I think my mom saw Gilbert and he asked how she was, and she told him that she killed herself. And Gilbert, someone who always has a joke to say at the most inappropriate time, like he didn't say anything. He was just like, oh, fuck. So I think that, in his own way.
It wasn't an accident?
No, it wasn't an accident. I don't think so. She was, she was at a weird crossroads.
Her mother had passed though, right?
No, I'm not sure. I think her mother might have still been alive. And that's the sad thing is I've lost touch with her family and I wish I still knew where they were. Her sister Laura wrote a very famous book about their childhood in Germany. But I think it was called We Should Have Had Dogs, because that's what her parents used to say to them. Because, a lot of Holocaust survivors were traumatized and were abusive to their kids.
I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. So her parents were kind of abusive and used to look at her and her sister and say, we should have had dogs. And I think that's what she called the book. But I can't find the book or the author to try to track her family down.
Really sad.
I know.
How did your mom become friends with her to begin with? And was she a live-in babysitter?
She wasn't a live-in. I don't know where my mom found her. I assume through an agency. And I remember it was my birthday the first night I met her. My parents were going to a benefit. I was like hysterical because I didn't want them to leave. I see this woman who looks like Howard Stern and I'm just like losing my shit. I was
funny what you remember.
I was in a huff. So I remember putting on my big little like crinoline ball gown and sitting in my room watching The Sound of Music. And she came in and was like, "Oh, this is my favorite movie." So then I was like, "Okay, you're cool. We can be friends." But I just thought it was so funny because she was just such a live wire that, to go from like being mad at Gilbert for saying all this stuff to like arguing with him on Howard Stern and like,
That's
just
awesome.
Sparring with him. Yeah, I think she had a really good time because she loved Howard and Gilbert. Oh my God, Gilbert was so funny. He was like, "Do you hear yourself? You're using your like parents in the Holocaust as an excuse to get on Howard Stern." And she was like, "Then it was for a good cause because I got to talk to Howard. I love you, Howard." Like, just so crazy.
That's the best. I love Howard like that too, honestly. I mean, it sounds like she could have been Barbara from Brooklyn or somebody. You know what I mean? She could have been one of their characters.
Yeah, she was insane.
That is like a dream come true though for somebody to love, somebody like an idol like Stern or whatever, and then get on the show in exactly the kind of thing that would crack Howard up, especially fighting with Gilbert Gottfried. I mean, anything Gilbert does is hilarious, let alone fight with a woman about the Holocaust. It's just so preposterous.
Yeah. He, Gilbert, he can't resist, making a joke. And he was like that time he was hired to open for the Go-Go's. And it was all like middle-aged women and their 13-year-old daughters. And I heard he just launched into the raunchiest like pussy humor that he possibly could. I think they had to like give him the hook. I think they that's enough of you.
Yeah, he's too much. And yeah, he did get fired from the Affleck job because he was one of the people that said after the tsunami about the airline pilot or something. He called him a racial name.
Oh, no, it wasn't that. It wasn't, I don't believe in my heart that Gilbert actually is like racist or a bad person.
I don't think so either.
What he did was he launched a series of tweets. One of them was like, my Japanese girlfriend always makes me sleep on the wet spot. Like, or, my Japanese girlfriend broke up with me, but you know what they say, another one will come floating by in 5 minutes. It's like just really awful, like just trying to push all the buttons.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think, I know that there's like this argument now about like cancel culture and comedy and like what's appropriate and what's not. And I don't want to be like, every edgelord is noble and that's real comedy, because I do think sometimes people use that as an excuse after they do say something that's genuinely
sure.
But Gilbert's not one of those people. Gilbert is just sick in the head and has no self-control. And, it's like I saw him after he married this lovely woman and had a baby.
I was going to say that. Doesn't he have a lovely wife and
she
child?
looks like so normal. And I walked up to him. I was like, "You had a baby?" And he was like, "Yes, I fucked a baby." And it's like, of course you did. Just like, that's Gilbert.
You're very fortunate to grow up with a mom who I bet had a lot of interesting friends.
Yes. Yeah.
I bet.
He was certainly one of them. And Stuart Kornfeld, loved him. Wallace Shawn, like nicest guy in the whole universe. I was very fortunate to spend time with all these smart, funny people.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a sign of intelligence, humor. Because those comedians have to stay so much further ahead. Comedians stay so much further ahead than regular people. Their minds are always working as to what's the next funny.
Right.
So, and Gilbert, what a character. I've heard in several places about him being so cheap, but they say it's like extraordinarily cheap. Like he takes light bulbs from hotels and, like crazy cheap. Right. I always think about then what do people like that spend money on, or they just don't spend the money?
I don't think he spends the money. I think he has it. I think he just has it, and it's there, and that's a comfort to him. The last time I saw him, my boyfriend and I went to Caroline's to see his show, and his sweet wife was like doing the merch table, and she gave me one of his DVDs, and she was like, "Don't tell him I gave you this for free." And it's like, I've known him since I was a baby, and he probably wouldn't have parted with that DVD without me paying for it.
So funny. Yeah, I think somebody talked about him stealing ketchup packets and stuff, like just absurd stuff, and maybe some of it is even just for funny now. I mean, it can't be that broke. I mean, he's not broke.
No. I think it might also be like an OCD thing, but also like when I think about my mom, she's not like that, but she, children of depression babies where, my grandfather would eat an apple and nurse it for a week, just taking slices off of it and keeping the rest of it in the fridge where it's getting all brown and stuff, because it's like, you just had to save everything.
You had to make do. I remember my grandmother saying one time, talking about the cost of toilet paper with my parents, like they were in the kitchen and we kids were in the other room. And I remember my grandmother saying, "You should only need 4 squares. 4 squares is all you should need." And we're all like losing it laughing. And my grandmother was dead serious. Can you imagine? But I guess
it's real. My mom, she'll come home with
real.
She'll come home with broken furniture. She'll be like, "Look what I found," or like, "It was free." And I'm like, "But it's broken. We can't use this now."
I don't need it. Right
now, it's just garbage in our house.
Yeah. So funny. Well, listen, this has been so much fun talking to you. And anytime, somebody brings forth the story about Gilbert Gottfried, I'm in, man. This has been a blast. Nice. And I'm just really happy to meet you. And I hope I run into you in comedy clubs.
Yes, me too. I'm excited for you to come to New York and to see your set at Gotham. And
I'll be there. I'm really excited about that as well. And I just love New York. I love the whole scene. And I know the city's going to come back. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think it'll be tough. And I know a lot of businesses went under, but I also think that like it's an indomitable city. Like it's going to come back. People are going to come back. The comedians and the clubs are going to stick it out. Everything will be okay.
What about some of I think about some of the Broadway stages and how the audiences, they're so small. Like, not only the theater's kind of small, but the seats are tiny and close together. And I'm wondering if they're going to have to start doing kind of, more spread out seating arrangement, or
they're going to have to. And a lot of clubs do that. They only do like 25% capacity. And that makes sense to me. I think it's, things are going to get a little better now that everyone's getting vaccinated. So like slowly but surely, but I don't think they're going to be packing the houses the same way. And I know that as long as the weather is still nice, a lot of places are still trying to do the outdoor stuff or sort of push it into the streets. So that's cool.
Sure. It's just like New York when it gets real cold and everybody's got these big heavy coats on. Then you go into this theater and your seat, you barely sit in the seat. You're, fit in the seat, let alone you got the coat and then the thing. And then there's all these people and it's like, ay.
Right.
But, it'll be back. I love New York.
It'll be good. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun.
I really appreciate it. We got to wrap it up, but I do want to remind you to check out Mollie over on Twitter at Mollie Schmolly, and then find me over there as well at Storyworthy. And don't forget to check out StorySmashShow.com and find out when the next Story Smash is coming. We're having a blast over there on Facebook and YouTube. So join us on Friday nights before we go back to the Improv, and we're never coming back. No, that's not true. I want to sell the show, but it's, we'll see. It's just so much more fun live. Obviously everything is more fun in a theater. So
totally.
Anyway, you guys, listen one more time on behalf of the very, very talented Mollie Heckerling. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
Your favorite band's about to play a sold-out show. You got in.
Over here.
With a friend. And found a spot close enough to see the set list. They're definitely playing your song. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
Cedar Point's Frontier Festival is back and brimming with new flavor. From May 26th through June 19th, this Old West-inspired street fest will fill Cedar Point with live bands, nightly hoedowns, and a hubbub of family activities. Yup, you'll find wheelbarrows packed with sunflowers and characters straight out of the frontier, but you'll also discover 25 cherry-inspired dishes and over 65 cocktails, seltzers, and beers. Get all the fixins, plus savings to boot with the Frontier Festival Bundle, which includes admission, parking, and a tasting card. Only at cedarpoint.com.
And now, an Etsy holiday gifting mission. Today's episode, Operation Delivered on Time. Here's the situation. The holidays are coming up, which means you're on a mission to buy handcrafted gifts, and they have to be delivered on time. Failure is not an option. You need a guarantee that everything will get to its destination. Impossible, right? Not this year, because you're shopping for gifts on Etsy. Etsy is where everyone can find handmade gifts from independent sellers and get them delivered on time or your money back. Whether you're searching for handmade home pieces like serveware, cutting boards, and throw pillows, or personalized items like necklaces, handbags, and seasonal jackets, Etsy has it and delivers on time or your money back. New to Etsy? Use the code HOLIDAY10 for 10% off your first purchase. That's code HOLIDAY10. Maximum discount value of $50. Expires December 31st, 2023. See terms at etsy.com/terms. To claim refund, see terms at etsy.com/protection. Etsy account required. Etsy has it. Shop Etsy.com.